the new setup. So the ID we are using for that is okay, I will clarify. Okay, so good morning everyone. So who is Ananya Samhita? Somebody joined with the name. And tell you, otherwise we have to disconnect you. Who is Meme Tech? Give me 2 minutes. Somebody joined with the name Srini. Who is that? Okay. Okay, fine. Okay, who is Satya? Okay, who is Satya? Okay, fine. Okay, your email ID? Is it? Okay. Okay, send me a test mail to PEGA BPM7 @gmail.com. PEGA BPM 7 number 7 @gmail.com. Okay. Okay. See, last session we created an application setup. So we have given the application name as theme, right? And organization name is Maya. So based on the organization name, so it will configure operator IDs. So operator IDs are nothing but user IDs. So which can use it to log into the application. So as part of the setup process, application setup, so we configured an operator ID admin@myapp. Okay, and the default password is rules is the default password. Okay, so we will log in using this ID and password. And today's session we will see some terminologies we'll use in this application design, and also we'll see how to define the properties inside a work class. Okay, so yesterday we have created a table again in the when I start the practicals after 2 sessions. So once again we'll do the data table creation. So in that session again we'll get in detail. So now we will see some of the terminologies which we use in the application. So first of all, log into the application using the new operator ID admin@myapp, and rules is the password. Okay, so we'll discuss some things like, so what is a rule in PEGA? So generally what are rules in PEGA? See, inside the application explorer, so when you open any rule type, actually first of all we have something called rule type. Under each rule type we'll have some set of rules will be there. Okay, under each rule type we'll have some set of rules. So some of the rule types in the application we have is, we have data model rule type, user interface rule type, technical, process, reporting, integration. So we have so many things: integration, connectors, integration, services. So these are all some of the rule types: integration, connectors, services, then sysadmin, organization. So these are all the rule types in the application. Again, if you take each rule type, okay, in that each rule type we'll have some set of rules. Okay, so these rules are nothing but building blocks of the application, so which helps in creating or configuring a new application. So each rule is considered as a one block of the application. So what are the rule types and what are the rule you can see in the PEGA PRPC tool. So when you open this application explorer, so because most of the design, 90% of the design from application explorer, so 80%, and remaining 20% of the design from the designer studio will happen. Okay, so inside the application explorer, as part of the application setup, so we configure the classes already. Okay, so automatically PEGA will configure all these classes, and I told you, so this inside application explorer by default, so you can see a class group, or we can also call it as a work pool. Okay, so this is our class group or work pool, and under this, these three are subclasses. Okay, so these subclasses are based on the cases. See, what are the cases we configured inside a case types at the time of application setup. So automatically, so what are the case names we have provided, with the same name PEGA will configure these subclasses. Okay, like we can consider each case as a, or each class as a separate module here. Anything if you want to work on the bank, you can directly create under this bank class. Okay, right click on the class. Now you can see all these rule types. So these are all, so user interface, technical, sysadmin, security, reports, process, organization, integration things, decision, data model. So all these are rule types in the application, and under each rule type, we'll have some set of rules. If you take a data model, okay, even though we'll not all use them, so only, so maximum inside this application, so maximum 30 to 40% only of the options only we'll use. Okay, so some of the options are from previous versions, so the names will be like that only. Suppose if you take any rule type, under each rule type we'll have some set of rules. If you take decision, so data model is for like property related things. Decision, all are condition rules. So decision rule type contains all the rules related to conditions. So these are all different types of conditions. So integration contains, so connectors rule type contains all the connections. Okay, no need to manually configure any connectors in PEGA. So already connectors are provided, so just we have to provide the inputs in the form. So mapping like that, resources, services. So these are all the rules in the rule types. Organization contains like operator IDs creation, like work groups creation and all. Process contains like flows creation, validations will be there, notifications will be there, like service levels. So all these things will be rules under the process rule type. Means, so here what are rules means, so these are all the rules. Under the decision, these are all rules. Under process, all these are rules. Okay, so like this, so we have under the rule type, so all the rules will be there, so which are nothing but building blocks of the application. So if you want to, anybody ask you what is the rule in PEGA means, so rules are nothing but building blocks of the application. And basically, so where we are defining these rules generally, so rules are we are creating inside a concrete class. Because yesterday I told you, so rules are created inside a concrete class. So you know the configuration, right? Yesterday I showed this one. So when we create a class, when we create an application setup, so automatically PEGA will configure a class. So that is a bank is a subclass. So and the type of class is concrete here. Okay, so the class type is concrete, and generally, so inside concrete class only we can create new rules. Inside abstract class we cannot configure new rules in PEGA. So that one you will get in integrations, that one. So basically any new rules if you want to configure inside an application, we can create only inside a concrete class only we can create. Okay, so that is the point here. And rule is a named object that defines the behavior of part of an application. Okay, so each rule is nothing but a part of, like it is a block of an application or part of the application. So according to the requirement we get, suppose if we get a requirement to so design one form and map it to the database, so we have to create some 5 to 6 rules and we have to connect each and every rule in the application. So then, so all those things we will configure inside this class. Okay, so that one we will be doing in the day after tomorrow session. So this first today and tomorrow sessions will be a basic introduction on few things. And in PEGA, so rule is single instance of class derived from rule-class. See, generally we can also see, yesterday we have created a data table. Even data table also comes under rule only. Okay, like this. So again I told you, basically in PEGA application, the total overall application divided into different class groups like work class, data class and integration classes. Okay, if you are creating any rules inside work classes means, so those will be saved inside this main rule-work class. If you are creating anything inside data class, yesterday tables will be saved inside a data class. So like that, so every rule will be instance of some class derived from the base class. Actually some super class will be there, right? So that is, if you are creating inside a work classes means inside work class it will save. But common thing will be all these work classes and data classes will be saved inside a rule set. So that one also will get in the coming today's session only. So what is the rule set, I'll tell you. And what are the rules we are creating? Every rule will contain something called class instance. So about the class instance also I will tell you at the time of rule set only. Okay, so like every again every individual rule contains something called class instance. Okay, so generally when we create any new things in the application, new rules in the application, so based on the rule type, so all the rules will divide and they will save inside the class instance. Okay, that one I will tell at the time of rule set. And we have something called case in PEGA. Okay, already we have given the names of cases, and already in the new application case names are already configured. But once in the next level, so what we need to do inside a case, so generally cases contains stages and process. Okay, means how the business transaction flow will happen, everything will configure from the flow level only, sorry, case level only. See how the flow of the entire module will happen, so those things we have to define from the case level. So means generally if you open any case, right, when you go to Cases Explorer, if you open any case, so generally we'll be having some stages and process. So stages means, so stage names we can give any name, so according to the module whatever we are working. So again under that we have to configure the steps. Okay, under each stage, suppose if there are two types of steps are there, okay, two different steps are, that again depends upon the requirement. If the flow, if you want to include everything in a single flow, you can add one step here, or else if you want to divide the flow into two parts, so in the same stage you can add two steps. Okay, like step 1, step 2, like that. So again each step is nothing but here, each step is considered as a flow here. Okay, stage names you can give any names. So under each stage, according to our requirement, we can configure any number of steps, or we can also call it as process here. Each step is considered as a process here. Again in the process also, see in the stage level we will only give the names. Okay, in the stage level or in the process level we will only give the names. actual design will take place inside a flow only. See, generally in the cases we will only define the names of the stages and names of the flows, but actual design will take inside a process flow. There will be something called process flows in PEGA. So inside process flows the design will take place, means how the transaction is initiated, process and resolved. So those things, the design will take place inside a process flows. Only we'll give the names inside a case. Okay, direct design will not happen inside a case. So we will only mention the what are the stages, stage names and the process names only we will enter inside a case. So later the design of the stages and process will happen inside a process flows. Okay, so we can also call it as process, or it is also called as a process flows. And internally PEGA will use a tool called modular tool in order to design these process flows already. So inside the PEGA PRPC, so there is a tool called modular tool, and using that we can design the process flows. And there are again some types of flows are there, process flows and screen flows. So those differences you'll get in next sessions. Okay, so using the flows, so what are the flows also will do the same thing. So at the case level what we will do, we will just give the name of the stage and name of the process, but the design of that process will happen inside the flows. Okay, process is represented as a flow in PRPC, and what these flows will do means how the work objects are initiated and how they progress through one shape to other shape, and how they are completed, means how they are get resolved. So everything we have to configure in the form of shapes. Okay, so for each rule there will be a separate shape will be there. Accordingly we have to design these flows in the application. And okay, so about these cases and process in detail, again in the practical session you will get how to configure the case and how to configure a process. So in detail we'll be discussing about the what are the shapes inside these process flows, and what are all the differences between the types of flows will be there. So what is the difference between process flows and screen flows, you'll get in the next session. So just a technical terms only I'm saying now. And yesterday we discussed about a class. So class is nothing but a, so it is means class is nothing but a container of again rules, because see generally where you are creating all the rules, so we are creating from the class level only, we are creating all the rules. If you observe here inside a bank class, you will open the rule type. Inside the bank class you will go to the rule type. Under rule type you will select the rule name, means so even class is also considered as a container of rules. Actually main thing is rule set is considered as a container of rules, but even class is also called as a container of rules. Okay, so now like all the rules, not only one single type. So maximum what are the rules we have inside this PRPC. So for all these rules class is a container only. Okay, so and here classes are divided into two groups, abstract class and concrete class. So basically abstract classes is only a container of rules and data which cannot be persisted in the database. It's not a permanent thing. Okay, so those are temporarily we'll import the data and we will reuse in the application. And concrete classes contain rules and data. It can be initiated and persisted in the database. So generally any new things if you want to configure inside an application, so generally we'll configure from the concrete classes only. And anything if you want to reuse, we will reuse from the abstract classes. And concrete classes may inherit from an abstract class. So generally I told you what is the parent class for this bank class. So parent class for this bank class is work. Okay, basically okay, if you take this class group for example, so for this class group the parent class will be work -n, or if you take for the bank class also the parent class will be this class group, like this. So basically any concrete class you take, its parent class will be an abstract class only. Okay, generally concrete classes are derived from abstract classes according to the structure which is defined in the backend. If you see the inheritance of any class, so basically all the concrete classes are derived from abstract classes only. You can see here work -n is a parent class for these classes. Okay, if you take any subclass also, if you see, so those classes are derived from abstract classes only. So how you can identify whether it is abstract class or concrete class means, if there is a hyphen after the class name is there, so generally abstract class names will end with hyphen. So these classes are abstract classes. Here work hyphen is abstract class and it is derived from, so this parent class if you consider for this, so abstract classes are parent classes for the concrete classes. Okay, so then again we have, so inheritance is there. Okay, there is two types of inheritance will be there in PEGA. So coming to this, so inheritance there are two types. So generally, so which is initiated by the system. Okay, if the inheritance is initiated by the system, it is called as pattern inheritance. And if we define the inheritance within the application, it is called as a direct inheritance. Okay, direct inheritance in the sessions, how we will define in the sessions I'll tell you. So generally pattern inheritance means, so which is automatically enforced by the system or based on the class. So right now we have seen, right, so what are the inheritance for all these classes, so which is a pattern inheritance which is automatically so generated by the system only. So in the coming sessions we'll give our own inheritance, so manually we'll give the configuration, so in the activity rules and in the at the time of working on properties, so we'll be giving our own inheritance. So those inheritance types comes under direct inheritance. Okay, pattern inheritance means which is the system defined, and direct inheritance means which is defined by the developers. So here nothing but user is nothing but a developer. Okay, whenever we define our own path or whenever we give the configuration, so those inheritance comes under direct inheritance. So in the coming sessions I'll show you how to use this. And coming to the what is a rule set in PEGA. See, so first of all, generally the actual path where every rule will be saved means, so generally rule set is also container of all the rules, but where this rule set will be located means, so generally inside application. So our application name is, so key is the application name. Then this rule set is common for all the classes. Suppose if you are creating anything inside a work class means, if you are creating anything inside a work class means, so it will be saved inside the work class. Okay, if you are creating, yesterday we have created a data table configuration, so there we are using a data class. So if you are creating inside a data class means, it will save inside a data class means, rule set currently is common for all the classes. If you take work class or data class, in the coming sessions if you take integration classes, so it is common for all the classes means, so inside an application, inside the class, so this class can be any class, it can be work class, it can be data classes, or it can be integration classes. Then inside the class, now we will have a rule set. So generally what is, how the rule set name is configured here. So when at the time of application setup, what are the name given to the application name, with the same name PEGA will configure rule set name also. We have given application name as scheme, and with the same name PEGA will configure rule set name also. So here for our application currently the rule set name is, so key is the rule set name, and so it is like a workspace here. Okay, so inside an inside this present application, inside the class, so what is the class, it can be any class, so it can be work class, data class, or integration class, and inside that, so for all the classes we have a common rule set only. So based on that, if you are creating inside a bank class means, so the rule set is same for the bank class. If you are creating inside a sample class means, the rule set is same for the sample class also means, inside the application we have all these classes. So then all the data from all the classes will be saved inside the rule set. So again inside the rule set we will have something called class instances. For every rule there will be some class instances will be there. So about this class instances, it is too early to tell you, discuss. So generally I'll give you an idea about this. So generally based on the rule type, okay, every rule contains some class instance. For example, if you create one property in the application, it can be data class property or work class property. So generally all the properties will reside in a location called rule-obj property. Okay, actually property is nothing but a rule in PEGA, and these properties inside the rule set, they will be saved inside this class instance called rule-obj properties. Means all the properties whatever you are creating in this application, so we'll save inside a class instance called rule-obj property. So like this, every rule will have some class instance. Suppose if you take some flow diagram, I told you something called process flows, right? So whenever you create any flow inside an application, all the flows will be saved inside rule-obj flow. Okay, inside this location, so they are in the rule set. Actually these are all the instances will be inside the rule set only. Inside the rule set, again inside the class instance, all our rules will be saved. So like this, so throughout the application, what are the things we are creating or what are the rules we are creating, so all the rules will be saved inside the application, inside a class, so inside a rule set, again inside the class instance, so all the rules will be saved. Okay, so these class instance will be different for every rule. Okay, those are not same. Every rule will have its own class instance. So based on the rule we are creating, so inside the class instance, all the rules will be saved. Means all the properties rules will be saved inside this class instance. All the flow rules will be saved inside this class instance. Okay, so like this we'll have some 20, 30, 40 rules will be there. Okay, so all the 40 rules will be saved inside the same rule set only, but the class instance will be different for each and every rule. We can consider this as a workspace inside the application. Okay, so by default, means in here it is storing in a server, inside a server. So rule set is a workspace, so where we are storing all the data, all the rules whatever we are creating inside the application. So here we have three terminologies similarly. So one is rule, I'm saying another thing is rule type and rule set. See, the difference is rule is a individual rules. Okay, basically rule type is nothing but a category. Okay, inside a application, rule type is nothing but a category, and under each rule type will have so many rules will be there, and generally what are the rules we are creating in the application will be saved inside the rule set. Okay, so till here any questions? So you got here, right? So you know what is rule type in PEGA, and what are the rules in PEGA, and what is rule set in PEGA. Any confusion in these three things? Anyone? Yes, tell me. Yeah, this is just a terminology introduction. We didn't create anything, right? So just a terminology I told you. So there is nothing typical to understand this thing, guys. Okay. So just these are nothing but the terminologies we'll use in the application. Okay. So when I start the practicals, you can understand. So just rule types means what? So inside the application, so all the rule types are predefined. Okay. Okay. Mute the microphones, others. Okay. See, example I will take after I will just told the terminology. Example means it will take a lengthy thing. So in the day after tomorrow session, we will start the practicals, then you can understand. See, that's what I already told you, right? So I opened the tool and told you what is a rule type. So you can understand here. So these are all the rule types I told you, and these are all the rules I said. So while creating in detail you will get. So that's what I told. I'm only telling the terminologies today. So not the practical things. Okay, I will tell you. I didn't come to that topic, right? I will tell you after this. Okay, so these about the terminologies. So mainly we use some terminologies like, so process or process flows. Okay, so then rules in PEGA and rule set in PEGA. So rule set is common for the entire application currently. So what is the rule set in our application means, so you can see what is the name of the application, with the same name we'll have the rule set also. Okay, and coming to the rules, okay, so we'll be covering the rules whatever we use in the application. Okay, so first of all we'll start with a property rule now. We cannot physically directly go to that, so directly when you go, so again if you want to see that rule means, so generally it is located in the sysadmin category, but we cannot see the rules directly physically, we cannot see. So it is located in the server actually, so only just under the sysadmin category rule set will be there. So but if you want to export the data, see once after completing the application, if you want to export all the rules in the application means, again we have some different modes are there. So we have something called property, product rule, again some internal tool is there, so for migrating the data from the rule set, so like export by product, that one you will get in the coming sessions. Okay, not necessary right now. Export by product, export by rule set. Okay, we have some tools are there, or else manually also if you want to do, if you want to import the data in the application, we can manually also import. Okay, so this one you will get in the coming sessions. Okay, see rule set generally it will be stored in the server. Okay, we cannot directly see the content in the server, so it will be located in a some different format. Okay, but when we export the data, what happens means from the rule set, so it will be saved in a form of jar file. Okay, so once after completing the application, all the rules in the application, so if you want to export all the data means, so all the files means all the rules in this application will be saved in a form of jar format. Okay, so that one, so we can do only from the, either from the this one import and export tool will be there, or else manually if you want to go means by product rule we have to go. Okay, so two different ways will be there. So that one in the time of so implementation I will show you that one. Okay, so basically if today and tomorrow's session will be having some introduction to important. Okay, mute your microphones please. So today and tomorrow we'll be having some introduction to what is a property and what are the important rules in user interface like section, because these things are mandatory, because any simple task if you want to perform also, so properties we have to create, section I will tell you, so about each topic I will tell you. So we have to create a section, we have to create a flagshin rule, and there is something called process flows I told, right? So we have to configure a process flows, and we have some important rule called activity. So these are important in any application. So basically, so there will be connection again from one rule to other rule, there will be some connections will be there. Suppose if you are adding a property means we have to configure them in a section. Then once after creating a section, we have to configure in a flagshin. So then we have to configure a business logic in activity rule, and all these things we have to configure in a process flows. So that is the reason. So first of all, if you want to do any simple, start any simple project also, so first of all we need to know about these rules. So then, so when I start the practicals on maybe Monday session, I'll start the actual practicals. So then by that time you'll be having some basic knowledge on these terms. So what is a property, what is section, flagshin, process flows, activities. So then we'll start the project, a new project. So in that we'll implement all these things in the application. So first of all we'll start with the data model. So yesterday also we used a data model if you remember. So yesterday at the time of creating a data tables, see data model category is available inside a data class, and it is also available inside the work class also. Okay, if you remember yesterday, so from where data tables are generated. So from the designer studio menu, so here if you go to data model, so data tables and data tables. Suppose yesterday also we configured from some properties, few properties inside the data tables. So see, those are also called as properties, and here also will inside work class also will create few properties. See, again properties, again two types will be there. So if you are adding any properties inside a data table, these are data class properties. So yesterday we configured few properties, right? So these properties comes under data class properties, and inside the work class also we have data model category. So here also we'll configure properties. Actually these are all the options used in the lower versions. So in the current version we will use only data page rule and property rule here. Okay, so other things by default will get in the different level. So when you open the property, so in the advanced options we'll get some other rules. Okay, that one I'll show you now in today's session only I'll show you. So generally what is a property means? So property is an instance so which is used to store the data in the application. Okay, generally, so in order to process and store the data, so we'll create a properties inside an application. So again here properties will be created at two different stages. At data table level we'll configure properties, and at work class level we'll configure properties. So then in the coming sessions, so in the data table level, what are the properties we are creating, right? So these properties we'll use for storing the data. So these properties we'll use for storing the records, we can say. So these properties are used for storing the records, and in the work class properties we'll create properties, right? So these properties are used for designing the user interface. So these properties are used for designing the user interface, means so we'll be defining user interface forms like a screens in the application. So while we'll directly create a property, we'll mention the data type of the property, we'll define the control of the property, and directly we can configure inside a user interface. So that one I will show you. You cannot understand. So if I directly say like this, I will show practically. Okay, any questions after this? I will take. Okay, suppose some sample means some example scenarios things I will take on the sample class right now. See, if you want to add properties in an application, and these properties can be reused, guys. Okay, once we create one property, for example, so what are the properties? For example, I want to create some properties like first name, last name, age, salary, company, okay. See, generally properties, once we create a property inside a class, we can reuse any number of times. Means suppose same property you want to use in different forms. Okay, so first name is there and last name is there. Again the same property you want to use in more than 3 forms or 4 forms. So these properties will be created once, and they can be reused in the application any number of times. Okay, each property can be reused. There is no need to create every time, okay, same property again and again. So we will create a property once, and we will reuse any number of times in the application. So we'll see, and these properties can be created in different ways. Means at a time we can configure all the properties. At a time we can configure all properties, or we can configure each single property at a time also. So there are two ways. We can configure single property at a time, or at a time, see, generally we'll have a requirement like when you will get a document specification we'll get. So in the document specification, what are the properties you have to create inside this class? So you'll get the list of all the property names. So generally in the real time, we will use a wizard option in order to define these properties in the work classes. So what is the how to go to that wizard and how to configure all properties at a time, I'll show you first. So generally if you want to configure properties inside a sample class means right click on sample, we have to right click on sample class. You'll get one option called create properties. You'll get an option called create properties. So just click on this, a small wizard will open. So inside that we have to list all the names, property names we have to list. So generally you can see here, so where all these properties are saved, you can see the rule set name here, right? So generally I told the path also. So inside an application, so actually all these classes are inside application. Inside the application under the parent work class we have this sample class, and we are right now creating the properties inside a sample class, right? So then inside the sample class, inside the key rule set, so all the properties will be saved right now. Okay, now give the names of the properties here directly. Okay, in each row we can enter one property. Okay, so mode is nothing but, so actually we have property level, we will use two different modes in 7 version. So these other modes we will use in the previous versions, so currently it is not required. So when I tell you about the 6.3 version, you will get about the other modes. So generally in the current version, maximum we will use single value and value list only. So the purpose of single value means, the mode is single value means, so your property will take only one value. Okay, so generally first name, how many values you will enter? Only one name you will enter. So what is other thing is value list. So generally value list is nothing but, if you want to give multiple values for a single property, for example address property is there. For address property you will enter multiple values like door number, street name, okay, city, pin code, okay, overall multiple values you will give for that property. So that is nothing but a mode of a property. So if your property holds one value means you will give the mode as single value, and if you want to give multiple values for a property means we can give the mode as value list. And we have other modes are there, so those things I will tell you in 6.3 version, because these are not required to use in, means instead of this we have a separate rule defined in the 7 version, that is data page. So we will not use the other options in this mode here. Okay, so directly we can use a data page rule in the application instead of using these modes. Okay, right now, so while adding the properties, so we'll give the mode of the property and data type of the property. And if you want to add another property here, click on add a row. Just define property names. So change data type. So like this we can configure so multiple properties in a wizard. So what are the list of properties you have, or what are the requirement you get, so you can define all the properties in the wizard directly. So instead of creating each property, so we can configure all the properties in this wizard. Okay, once if you finish adding all the fields, so click on next option. And for all the fields by default we'll get a text box control we'll get. See what is the text box? Generally a small text box size we will get. So for all these properties, so that by default, so the text box will be the default control. Okay, text box means a small box like this. Okay, so where we can enter single value for all these properties. And if you want to change these controls, we can change at user interface level. Okay, so that one I will show in next session. You will get that option, how to change the controls defined at property level, because properties will be reused, right? So make sure at property level we have to give the control as text box only. We will have some other controls will be there like text area and drop down, but generally properties will be reused in different forms. So make sure, so at property level we will give the default control as text box, and in the user interface level we can change the control. For example, some company is there, so company property, in one form we are using a text box, in another form we are giving some static data or dynamic data, and there we'll give a drop down. So that's the reason property level we'll give a common control as text box, and if you want to change in the user interface we can change it accordingly. Okay, so because these properties are used throughout the application, right? So make sure the default control will be text box for all the properties. Now click on next option. So now click on submit. See, previously under the sample class we don't have a data model rule type, but after creating these properties, here under the sample class data model rule type will be added, and when you expand the data model rule type, under that you will have a property option. Under the property you can see all the rules. Okay, after clicking the submit option, so all these properties will get created. And what is the purpose of these properties means, we are going to use these properties for designing the user interface. So just see, generally if you want to design a form in any other what is programming language tools, so there we have to write a code for each and every field, but here no need to write any code. So directly we'll define the properties and just will drag and drop the property into the user interface. So there will be having some configuration, layouts configuration will be there. So where you want to place the property in the form, we will just drag and drop the property name. So once refresh, because the sample class is already open, right? So once refresh, if you want to refresh the application explorer means, we have an option called refresh app explorer, or else manually you can right click on this class and you can select the option as refresh sample. Okay, you can use any option. You can use the application explorer in order to refresh the application explorer, or if you want to refresh only the sample class means, right click on sample and you can click on refresh sample class. So automatically, so what are the things or what are the new rules added inside this sample class, so everything get updated. So you can see here now a new rule type is data model is added. Previously we don't have a data model. Now under this data model, if you expand, you can see the property rule. Under this, what are the properties we created, you can see the list of properties. Okay, so this is one way, so how to define all the properties at a single instance using a wizard option. Suppose if you want to add individual property, so means one property at a time means, so we will see the other option now. So if you want to create each single property at a time means, now right click on this class. So properties comes under data model rule type. Under this property rule is there. Okay, just click on this property rule. So in the label option we'll give the property name. For example, I'm giving a property name as education. Suppose, see where these properties are physically stored means, so inside the key in application, inside the class, that is my-app-key-work-sample, inside the rule set, all the properties will be saved. Okay, now click on this open option, click on open. Okay, here you will get an option to change the data type of the property. So from here we can change the data type, and okay, this is by default will get a data access, no need to change this one. And here we have something called, when you open each property at a time, so by default we'll get a default validation. Even if you add properties using the widget also, by default we'll get a default validation. Okay, so if you observe or not, I will show you once again. In the widget option also, by default PEGA will provide a default validation. See, if you click on next option, you can see the format option here. See, format option is nothing but a default validation. Suppose if you give text box, so by default it will give a control name call or validation call, means we can only enter only in this text box, sorry, based on the data type we will get, not on the display. So based on the data type we will get this format option. This format option is nothing but a default validation which is provided by the PEGA. So generally if you take the data type as integer, means, so generally I am taking, so not creating this property. So once go back, if you change the data type to integer, so this time the format will change. Okay, but it is not changing in the, okay, we have to manually change. Okay, but it will work in the widget also, it will work, but we need to change it manually if you want. So I will show in this property level option. Suppose if you change here, for example, if you change to integer, it will automatically change the control here. What is the purpose of this display and validation is, so it will help to, so it will perform a default validation here, means for the integer text box you can enter only the integer values, it will not allow any alphabetical values. Suppose if you change the data type to any date or anything, so by default it will give a control as date time, means it will give a calendar option. So by default the validation is calendar for this. And if you change to any other type, password is there. So by default, what is the purpose of password? It will be displayed in a dot option. So you can enter only, so whenever any value you enter, it will be displayed in a dot option. So like this. So based on the type, automatically, so this default validation also will happen. And if you want to add advanced validations in PEGA at property level, so there is an advanced tab here. Okay, these options you'll get in coming sessions, not at this level. So if you want basic validation, means will be defined by the PEGA only, so no need to define. But if you want to define advanced validations for any property, we are having advanced tab, and in the we have a separate session for validations. Okay, in that session I will cover all these things. Okay, not at this time. So we have a option called advanced options, like so maximum length, expected length, so any sorting option if you want to add, any when condition, and some PEGA contains some predefined source codes will be there. Okay, for any property if you want to define any validation at property level, so we have all the source code predefined, so we can directly choose the type of validation, so from the drop down itself. Okay, so this one you will get in the coming sessions. So we have a session called validations, so property level validations will be there, page level validations will be there. So this is too early, so we'll discuss in the coming sessions about the advanced validations. So but at property level, so if you want to define a basic validation, means it will be defined by the PEGA systems only. Okay, so what are the data type you are selecting, based on the data type automatically it will configure the validation. And also both, not only validation, it will also configure the display thing also. Means, see, I told when I change the date, right, so by default it is changing to calendar display. So like this, so not only validation, it will also perform the display thing also. So both the display and validation will be performed based on the property type here. Okay, here for the property, text is the data type, and we have one more option here you can see, but we didn't use this option at the widget level. So when we create multiple properties, we didn't create that option. So when we have to go with this table type option, means for any property if you want to pass any static data. So what is static data? So generally we will manually pass some data for any property. Okay, for example, let's take a gender property. See, gender property basically we'll use a radio button control, and we will provide some values like male and female, right? So this is a male and female is a static data, so no need to dynamically take from the database. So statically we'll give these values at property level. So for example, some other properties there, city properties there. So you don't want to load all the city names dynamically from the database. You want to enter only some 4 or 5 city names you want to enter. So then we can pass all the names in a static data at property level. If you want to load dynamically means again we have to do a separate configuration for that. You will get in coming sessions. But generally if you want to add static data means I'll show 2 examples for this. Okay, so right now just we'll give the data type of the property and save this property. No need to define anything. So this is one way. Okay, if you want to add each property at a time, we can configure in this way. If you refresh this sample, so automatically this property gets updated in this property here. Under the data model type, you can see the property here. Okay, for example, I told you right, if you want to configure any static data for any property, so we have to define the values manually here. Okay, I will define 2 properties. You can understand how to define a property with static data. See, because we cannot define a static data if you use the widget option. We cannot define a static data for any property if you use the widget option. So but if you want to add static data means manually we can create a property from the data model rule type, select property, give property name as gender, click on open. See, data type for this property is text only. So expand this display and validation. See, table type is nothing but, so whenever you want to add any local values for this property, so any static values if you want to add for this property, under the table type option we have one option called, so whenever you want to add any static data, we'll use an option called local list. We'll use one option called local list. So inside the local list it will generate a table. In the table we have to enter the values for this property. So under the table type option we have to select option as local list, then it will generate a table. In the table we have to enter the values for this property. Okay, so under the table type we'll have some other options also will be there. We will not use all of them. So basically the important option here is local list is important. So when you select the local list, it will generate a table here. Here you can add, okay, in each row we can enter one value. If you want to add one more, add a row and define the table values in this column. Now save this property. So physically you cannot see the values at property level, means here in the Explorer you cannot see the values for this property, but when you use this property inside a user interface, then we can see the values. Suppose there you can give the control. Suppose if you want to add a drop down means we can add drop down. If you want to add a radio button means we can add radio button. So accordingly, so what type of control you want to add in the user interface, so there you can change the control. At property level I'm giving text input only, but at user interface level, in the user interface level we can change the control for this property. Okay, I'll create one more property in order to understand this. So this time, okay, suppose already property is created using the widget option. So what I will do means just open the city property. Okay, already property is created, but I want to add a static data for this property. So click on display and validation, select local list. So first value I'm giving like a caption. Okay, because by default if you want to display anything means give some caption, then enter the names. Okay, so if we have less values means we can give statically for this property, but if we have like 100 records are there means we cannot enter each value like this. So then in those scenarios we'll dynamically load from the database. Okay, but if you want very like 10 values or 15 values are there means we can manually enter the values statically for this property. But if we have like more records, like 50 records are there or 100 records are there means we'll dynamically load from the database. So that one you'll get in the next sessions. So this is how, so for any property we can add any static data. So means like this we'll define the work class properties inside the work classes. So now these work class properties, how to use them in the application means, so we have to use them in the user interface rule type. So we have a category called user interface for designing the forms. So under this we have some rules here. So we'll be using flow action, harness, navigation, portal, section, all these rules we'll be using. So but basic design of the forms will be, the actual design of the form will be defined in the a rule called section rule. So there is one rule called section rule. So under the user interface category, so generally basic design of the user interface means basic form designing will be done inside the section only. So later for doing some additional actions, or if you want to add any business logic for these pages, we'll be using some other rules, but the actual design will take place inside a section rule. Means if you want to use properties means we have to add inside a section rule only. So that one I'll show in tomorrow's session, because first of all I need to give introduction about the what are the components inside user interface. Then I will define what are the rules we have under the user interface. Then I will show the what are the layouts we have. Then I will show it practically in tomorrow's session. Okay, so till here any questions you can ask me now. Yeah, one by one. So just address me to microphone. Yes, somebody with Santosh, who is it? Ananya Samhita Santosh. Can you repeat a bit loud, please? Repeat again. Okay. Okay. So, see, in the next sessions we have to map these values, means what are the values we enter in the form, right? So those values will map to the data table properties. Okay, so work class properties are different, data class properties are different, and using both these, but property names must be same. Generally, if you want to map the records to the data table means the property names must be same in the data class and property names must be same in the work class. So with case sensitive, so they must be, property names must be same and it must be case sensitive. So then only we can map the properties from work class to the data class. So if you want to insert the data, so then compulsory, so same properties we have to create in the data class and in the work class. So these work class properties we'll use in the user interface. When we submit the form, end user will enter the records and we have to map it to the database. Okay, that one you'll get in the coming sessions. In the maybe from Monday session we'll do the practicals on these things. Yeah. No, within the same class only we can reuse. Within the same class, within the same case or within the same class only we can reuse. So outside the class, yeah, if you define in a main class we can reuse, but in a subclass if you define we cannot reuse in another subclass. Suppose if you if you define in a main class we can reuse. Yeah, so common properties will be defined in a main class. Then we can reuse in a subclass. But any properties you are creating in a subclass, we cannot reuse in another subclass. Yeah, So this one they'll give the, you'll get a specification. So based on that we'll be creating. So generally when a work is defined, means one work is assigned to the developer, so we'll be getting a specification document. Accordingly we have to create under which class, what property you have to create, what data type you have to give. You'll get a basic requirement you'll get. So based on that only we'll define the properties. So not only this, not only property, any rule in the application will be getting a description, detailed specification will get. So based on that we'll configure the rules in the application. Yeah, we can link, but at the time of linking, but instead of use the same class only. So we can link, we can configure the classes in the activity level and we can link the properties, not an issue. So there is a rule called activity rule is there. So in that already methods will be predefined. So using that activity rule we can link the properties. So from any class, so either it is from data class or it is from the work class, we can link all the properties. Yeah, to the data table. Okay, next, any questions? Shanaki, any questions? And this Santosh, what is your, who is your coordinator? You joined today. Jyoti. Okay, fine. Next, Chanakya, Harita, any questions? Next, Harsha, any questions? Okay. Harita, any questions? Yes, tell me. Okay. Yeah, actually, yeah, data table we cannot create in 7.1.9 version. You can create from Data Explorer we can create. If you want to, yeah. So generally in the Explorer panel you have a Data Explorer is there, right? From the in the application is in the Explorer panel, if you see, if you go to Data Explorer is there, right? So from actually 7.1.9 is a patch version, okay, but it is not used in the companies. So there one option is changed, data tables creation is changed in the 7.1.9. So from the Data Explorer only we can add the tables. Okay. Yeah, superclass it will not show. Okay, it will be actually that version will not be used. So try to install 7.1.6 only. So that is only a test version only. It's not a full version. So try to use 7.1.6. Okay. Okay. So next, Javed, any questions? Neelima, any questions? Okay. So Pavan, Raji, any questions? Just tell me, Chanakya. అవునవును. సో అదే అండి, సో అది యూ హ్యావ్ టు డూ ఇట్ ఫ్రమ్ డేటా ఎక్స్ప్లోరర్ ఓన్లీ. See, format will be same, but the location is changed, that's it. So directly from the Data Explorer panel is there, right? In the Explorer panel we have a data tab is there, right? From the data tab, if you open, you can create the tables. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So there, yeah, that's option is not. Again, what is the browser? Based on the browser also it will be there. So what is the browser you are using? Chrome. Try to use Internet Explorer for that. Yes, tell me. Okay. Okay. Express application is a demo one. We will not use that one. Okay. Okay, maybe you are using 7.1.9, I think. Okay, and try to use just use 7.1.6 guys, because 7.1.9 some options will be different from this. That is a patch version, but it will not be used in the companies right now. Okay, go with 7.1.6 only, even though that is a next patch for this, but it will not be used. So because even some companies are using 6.3 also, so learn the 7.1.6 only. Okay. But generally no, in maximum most of the applications will by default, okay, in the BPM only. So that is a suit actually. So again in the BPM suit they will go with the Scrum methodology only, they will apply. Again in BPM suit contains different methodologies will be there. So agile methodology, Scrum methodology, waterfall. So different methodologies will be there. So we can choose it depend upon the client requirement, they will go with the methodologies. But the process will be same. The overall will be BPM is the main thing. So but in the back end they can go with any other methodology. Okay, so that one will actually that will not use in the real time also, because see business analyst generally if we create, he will not add any data tables, right? So generally if you want to import, we can import manually. Okay, so that when we that is a task of a developer actually. So business analyst will not involve in the. See that's what. See that what importing, that is nothing but importing any existing data tables from any other server. In the personal edition you will not get. Actually in the enterprise edition means you will get the import option and export option will be there. But in the personal edition they will not give the, because it is a limited database, right? So they will not give export option here. Okay, we cannot export any direct tables, we cannot export in the personal edition. But in enterprise edition we will get that option. Okay, that is a limitation, right? Because say everything they will not give in personal edition. So only thing is they'll give a database to us. Internal database same will be in the enterprise edition also, but they'll get a export option will be there in the enterprise edition. But here we cannot import or export the data directly. Where while adding the table or after creating a table? Okay. 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 Proper. You'll get two options: property and label. You are asking. Okay. So this PY label. So PY label is just a duplicate of a primary key actually. Means from the Explorer you are asking. Okay. So insert row is adding a new property. If you want to add a new property, see, inserting a row means not, okay. Insert row and insert add a row, okay, nothing but both are same only, similar. I will show you. Okay, if you click on insert row, it will add before. Suppose if you add row here, it will after py label it will add a row. That is the difference. Nothing, it will just in a table physically there is no difference here. Insert row before means if it will before a row, it will add a row before. Add row means after this py label it will add a row, and there is no difference actually. So final thing is adding a new row, that's it. Okay, there is no difference. That is means suppose the column here insert row means, so before this py label it will add a row, after the row is there, right? So it is nothing but after this label it will add a row, that's it. So there is no difference between. Generally it is a duplicate of the primary key actually. Suppose when you add the records in the next sessions, see what are the records we are giving for the primary key property. So it will add a duplicate for that. For example, SSN ID is there. If I add a record for this SSN ID, so once refresh, just it will add a label, just a copy of that primary key value, that's it. Okay, yeah, across all the tables it will be same. Okay, so next, any questions? Ritvik, Satya? Yes, tell me. Okay. 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 Now, what is the tab you don't find? Okay, so not don't worry, details will not add anything. So just it is will not use the details tab anyway. Don't worry. Okay, yeah. Because there are some mistakes in 7.1.8 and some 7.1.9. Try to use 7.1.6 only, guys. Okay, some drawbacks are there in the other patch. Even though patch again 7.1.8 is a totally so many drawbacks are there. So try to use 7.1.6 only. But because those features are not used in the version anyway, so some modifications they are trying. Okay, so they didn't release the final thing, so they are trying to do some changes and modifications. Yes. Yeah, use 7.1.6. It is good compared to other patches. Okay, others, Srinu, any questions? Satya, any questions? Satya, Jagdish, any questions? Srinivas, Sudhir. Okay, who is not Vajja? Somebody with Sudhir joined. Both are same or different? Two Sudhirs are there. Yeah, is it same? You don't join with two IDs. Okay. Okay, Suresh, Vandana, Vijay. Any questions? Yeah, evening time, 6 after 6 p.m. we can go. Yeah. Okay guys, we'll see tomorrow then. So tomorrow's topic will be like introduction to user interface components, and then we'll see how to configure properties in a section, and about few other user interface rules we'll discuss tomorrow. Okay. So we'll see tomorrow. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.